Never a dull moment if you're a Trimet blogger. Today we've had a monumental failure of the Trimet computer system. Transit trackers are down. The bus communication systems are down. The Trimet website is down. Everything is down. You can't even pull up a Trimet schedule off trimet.org. So we've had a major Trimet fail today. And just this second, as I started recording this, we've had a Trimet bus 20 hit a pedestrian, unknown complications in terms of injuries. We don't know. Medical has been called. We don't know the extent of this. And earlier today, we had another MAX train breakdown downtown and disrupt the MAX service. So we're in major Trimet fail territory. We really have monumental, ongoing Trimet fails, and the management pays no penalty for any of this. And McFarland is going to give his little report here, and I don't really watch too much of the board meetings. It takes me a long time to get through one because they're all scripted, they're all bullshit, there's nothing really controversial there. They won't say anything bad. But we also found out today that the state audit was done a month ago and Trimet's had a copy for a long time. So the shit's been hitting the fan. But as those of us who follow this material know, that there is no penalty that Trimet executives pay for any of their screwed up behavior or any of the things they do that screw up the system. They just go right about their business as if nothing has ever happened. And we're going to watch the Trimet General Liar report now.
First item is the general manager comments. Mr. McFarland.
Mr. Board, President, members of the board, again, Happy New Year, and to everybody here as well. I did want to first talk about our ridership. I'll start with the good news about the ridership, which is the West commuter line continues to see very healthy growth, 17% over the same quarter compared to last year.
This whole West thing that they keep doing, bragging about the West, it's got a tiny ridership. I forgot what the numbers were, but it's a tiny ridership. So anytime they have any kind of increase at all, the percentage numbers look good. But what they always fail to mention in these bragging that they do about West is that it continues to be the most expensive ride, requires the most taxpayer subsidy, and is anywhere near the cost effectiveness of even the so-called expensive bus. But they have nothing else to brag about, so this is a good example of how they distort reality to give them something that looks positive, but it's not positive at all. But that's a very good example of how Trimet twists facts.
So that continues to be a very strong suit. But during the fall quarter, we did see a drop in our overall ridership by about 3.2%. That still is a pretty healthy number of 24.3 million rides. The bus ridership was down about 3.6 and MAX down about 2.6. Now, part of this is I think we're still sifting through the changes from the fare increase of a year ago September, as well as the elimination of the free rail zone.
There he goes again, digging up the excuse. We're still dealing with the end of fail square. Well, that's been gone a long time. And now now we're dealing with the fare increase. Well, obviously, the fare increase has played a role. I mean, you're not sifting through it. It's created ridership decline. Cutting service, raising fares creates what they call it, the death spiral, where people abandon the system and it just continues to fade. So Trimet has entered the death spiral, actually, by the classic definition of the death spiral, by making the service unreliable and too expensive. He always has an excuse, always tries to paint the picture positive even though it's negative. This is important because it's bucking the national trend, which has been huge increases in ridership. Trimet is going opposite the national trend, and that's very significant given that Portland and Trimet is supposed to be this national leader in transit, and yet they're bucking the trend of increased ridership. My opinion is complete management malfeasance, they should all be fired, because by the objective numbers, they've failed. But nothing will happen because they don't have any accountability.
So to some extent, we haven't gotten to that even keel comparison of the changes, particularly related to free rail zone at this point in time. But I'd also just note that we did look at December, because we're watching these trends very, very carefully, of course. And there was some relatively positive news about ridership in December. Max ridership was up 3.1%. System-wide ridership was up 1.2%. West ridership was up another 20% over December of last year. And particularly encouraging is that peak ridership was up in December for both bus and rail, actually pretty substantially. So we're continuing to monitor these numbers very closely, and we'll continue to report to you, but I think that's one of the things we want to watch as we move through the budget process. I'd also just note that we'll also be looking at the response to the frequent service restoration that will occur on March 1st per your earlier decisions, and would note that I think that will be a very encouraging thing related to ridership, and hopefully begin to improve some of the off-peak trips that were affected by the downturn here recently. So just a quick note on that. I'd also note that at your December board meeting, we announced an effort to more comprehensively look at our rail maintenance needs, both within the rights-of-way as well as our...
The Trimet light rail program has really been a disaster lately. I mean, every day there's some kind of a major disruption. It's a constant problem. I mean, all the years I've been watching this, and I've never seen the light rail have such little dependability as I do now. I mean, it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. They have really, really got problems over there with their rail maintenance. I'm not sure what they're going to do about it, but so far it just seems to be getting worse.
Vehicles, and our contractor LTK is beginning that assessment in earnest, and will be here next week beginning to do the assessment of the state of repair of our major assets associated with the rail system. They'll perform a number of spot checks of selected equipment, review our maintenance records, and what we'll be looking for at the end of the day is recommendations on maintenance procedures, our training programs, our staffing levels, and what repairs and upgrades are needed. Our goal is to have some interim reports along the way. This will be a 6-month effort overall, but we hope that the interim reports will allow us to integrate some of their comments in real time into the budget as we progress that over the next few months. Again, our goal here is really to maintain the status, the working level of our assets, so that we can continue to provide very high quality, reliable service to our customers. That's the
He says to continue to provide reliable, high-quality service to our riders. Well, you have not been providing reliable nor high-quality service to you. That hasn't been happening. You can't continue to do something if you're not doing it now. But as we know how these board meetings, everything is perfect when you listen to them. They're the #1 system in the country. Everything's lovely, and everybody should live here, and every transit system should be like them. And it's all a bunch of BS, because I know I'm listening daily to how things are going. I know more about it than he does, I'm sure. He's not listening to any of his operation. He's over here in his little world of meetings in that separate reality. None of those bureaucrats have the slightest idea what's going on out here in the field.
That's the goal at the end of the day. Bob Nelson, our interim Deputy General Manager, will give you a much further update in February on where this work is. And finally, last week, we did have the chance to announce the finalists for a bridge naming. I would just preface this by saying the Portland-Milwaukee project continues to be on time, under budget.
He's on time and he's under budget. Well, when you have $1.5 billion to play with, I would hope that you'd be on time and under budget. It's not like you're having to pinch pennies. Have you seen all the money they've wasted with them? All the things they've bought for themselves: new offices, new furniture, tore up the whole Center Street. They're buying all this stuff. They have so much money to play with that for him to say they're on time and under budget makes me sick, because they've got too much money and everybody knows it.
progressing very, very well, and my thanks to the staff that are continuing to work very hard and diligently to maintain that schedule. Again, we're expected to open that project, and will open that project in September of 2015. But along with Chet Orloff and Board Member Stovall and many others, we were able to make that announcement at the Oregon Historical Society. And just to relate those names, in case you've been living in a cave for the last couple of weeks, Abigail Scott Dunaway Transit Bridge was one. The Cascadia Crossing Transit Bridge was another. Tillicum Crossing Transit Bridge, or subtitled Bridge of the People, and the Y-East Transit Bridge were the four choices recommended by the advisory committee. So we are continuing to solicit public feedback on that. So far, we've received about 1,800 comments. They keep coming, and that's great. We'll close that around the 1st of March and provide those comments back to the committee and look for their recommendation and help in narrowing that to one ultimately. So we expect that committee recommendation in April. Again, my thanks to Director Stovall for serving on that, and again, the great work of the committee, Chet and the rest of the committee in progressing so far.
And of course, the wonderful general manager didn't bring up the fact that the most popular recommendation was the Kirk Reeves Working Bridge. But we all know now that Kirk Reeves does not have historical significance, according to the oligarchs. You know, some black guy that played a trumpet that killed himself. He's perfect. He's perfect. That's the tragedy of Portland and one human being there. But there was no way he was ever going to get it. I knew that whole thing was a fix, but the public was captivated by his bullshit. The whole bullshit name the bridge. I just can't believe how the public falls for all these traps. You know, it's like the sporting event stuff that never ceases to amaze me. How people are so into this game that's being played that absolutely has no effect on their lives at all, zero. But yet people get so thrilled about it that I don't know. It's that mob mentality. Somehow people just aren't seeing through things here. Anyway, we have the better recommendation for the bridge, and this is it here.